Hello, my dear ones. Well, here I am today with my new glasses. They just came 2 days ago, and I'm struggling to get used to them because they are varifocals. I've never had to wear varifocals. And hopefully now I can get back to you. All those emails and messages and comments that I have neglected and for which I ask for your forgiveness, now hopefully I'll be able to go back to answering them. I think I owe you a very brief explanation why this has happened, just because you've offered so much support and so many prayers on my behalf, and for that again I bowed down and I thank you so much. At the end of April, actually no, the beginning of April, just as I was coming back from America, from the United States, I caught this new virus. I caught COVID-19, and after I've gone through about 3 weeks of very, very difficult illness, and it had gotten to a point where I could feel something absolutely wrong in my lungs, and I struggled to breathe, and everybody, including our doctor, was quite scared. Once I survived those 3 weeks, I thought this would be the end of it, but as we are slowly learning, COVID seems to have long-term effects on the health of those affected as well. And it seems to identify the weak point in the system of each person and then affect that particular point. And for me, that has always been my neurological system. My migraines, for instance, immediately after the beginning of April have increased in a horrible way. I used to have 2 or 3 migraines a week, and then I got to having them on a daily basis, every single day of every single week of the month. And it got so bad that my neurologist eventually recommended that I start making these injections, which I have to self-administer. And anyway, it really got very, very bad. And then, about 2 months ago already, my eyesight all of a sudden just collapsed. It deteriorated abruptly and significantly to the point that I couldn't read and I couldn't write for more than 10-15 minutes in one go. And I had seen an optometrist in January, and at that point they recommended that I don't change my glasses. There was no need because my eyesight was just the way it's always been. Well, since then, my dioptries, however you pronounce that, have more than doubled. And for the first time in my life, I also now need to wear glasses for long distance as well. So I ended up having to wear these varifocal or bifocal glasses. Anyway, the sisters have decided that I should be called grandfather from now on because of the shape of my glasses. So I'm no longer Fr Seraphim, I'm Grandfather Seraphim. And that is quite appropriate because today is also my birthday. And mind you, I'm not celebrating my birthday. I once met a father who made the point that if I were to celebrate my birthday, I would have brilliant company in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Because in the Old Testament, Pharaoh celebrates his birthday, and in the New Testament, Herod celebrates his birthday. So from that time on, I'm not celebrating my birthday in any way. But a birthday is a moment in time when you kind of reassess your life. At least for me, it's always been that way. And you kind of count your blessings, as you say, and your weaknesses and your failures as well, to my shame. To this day, the greatest joy for me, the real miracle of my life, is that I still wake up in the morning and I am still in a monastery. I knew from the minute I saw and I understood what a monastic is, from the minute I saw the first monk, I knew that this is my life, this is who I am, this is my vocation. And I wasted no time. I would have joined a monastery that month. I've postponed because my spiritual father asked me to postpone, and because I understood immediately that the foundation of monastic life has to be obedience to one's spiritual father. So I waited until he gave me a blessing to enter a monastery. So I knew from the very beginning that this is my place, that this is who I am. And yet, to this day, the greatest surprise and miracle of my life is that I go to bed in a monastery and I wake up in a monastery. And every day is a blessing, and every day is a battle which I've won by the grace of God. I don't think in terms of my entire life. I don't even think in terms of years. I pray to God that this evening I am in a monastery, and that tomorrow morning I shall be in a monastery, day after day, month after month, year after year. I pray that when the time comes for my soul to leave this sinful body of mine, it will happen in a monastery. I hear quite frequently people who are scandalized because, oh, so-and-so has left his or her monastery. So-and-so, this monastic is now married. They have left the monastery and have, gotten married and are living in the world. And I do understand why that could be a surprise. And yet at the same time, I don't quite understand it. Because the real surprise in the world we live today, and given how weak we all are, the real surprise today is not that somebody abandons and leaves the monastery. The surprise is, the miracle is that anybody in this time of ours still has that holy madness to enter a monastery. I am in shock and in awe every time I receive an email or a message from somebody who contemplates life in a monastery, especially if that person is at the beginning of their lives, as I was, in their late teens, early 20s, because I know how improbable, incredible, against one's nature this step is. The surprise today is not that somebody abandons his or her monastic life, but that there still are people who wish to live this life and to follow Christ's calling in their hearts. And the same applies to people in the world to a great degree. The surprise today is not that people get divorced, that they can't live together anymore and they go their different ways. The surprise, the rarity, the miracle is to see people who are struggling to make it work, who are still fighting, still involved in this battle to make their marriage work. The world is so weak today, and that is a very nice British way of saying that we are so weak today, because who is the world? We are the world. The world is not some sort of imaginary, metaphorical enemy. We are the world. And we are so weak, our generation is so weak, that to see somebody who wants to enter the monastic life, or to see somebody who is involved 100% in the fight to maintain and to grow their marriage, to see somebody who struggles in order to remain pure and clean and virtuous, living a single life in the world, which is also a blessed way of living one's life. That has become the exception. That has become the miracle and the surprise. I go to bed every evening in awe that my pillow is in a monastery. And I wake up every morning so happy and so grateful, and all I want is to kiss the hands of the Mother of God and kiss the feet of Christ and every saint in heaven, that I am still in a monastery, good or bad. sinful or virtuous, going up or going down, it is irrelevant. What I struggle for, what I fight for, what I pray for, is simply that I do not abandon. There still is, one of Saint Seraphim of Sarov, one of his advices. I've struggled with that one for a long time, but now that I've become a grandfather, according to our sisters, I'm beginning to understand the depth of the wisdom of that advice. Saint Seraphim says that the spiritually active, the spiritually important periods of a monastic's life are the very beginning, the first years of one's monastic life, and the very end. And everything in between is just a fight, just a battle. And I understand it now. I understand that it is important to enter a monastery as soon as you have that calling in your heart, because you will need that burning fire to get through the temptations of the first years of monastic life. And I understand how important those formative years are. And I also understand how the end of one's monastic life are defining, because at the very end, when everything around you is back to nothing, having absolutely no importance, when it doesn't matter anymore what you think, what others think, what you accomplish or you fail to accomplish, what you build or what you don't build, when everything is this far from being back to this, just the dust of tombs, I understand how in those final years Christ can finally pour upon you all the grace He waited to pour upon you, because there's no longer a risk of you falling into pride, there's no longer a risk of you falling into despondency. And in between, all that there is this huge, seemingly endless desert. And in this desert, we need to win the battle of each hour, the battle of each day, the battle of each month, so that year after year we travel between the beginning of our monastic life or married life and the crown, the fulfillment of this life. I am in awe, and my heart is just drowning with gratitude that 15 years later I am still a monastic in a monastery, and Christ still uses me as a silly tool for my salvation, and hopefully for the salvation of one other person somewhere in this world. You all are part of my joy, because you all are making this life possible through the prayers that you offer on our behalf, through the support you offer by leaving these kind comments and sending us your emails of encouragement, and also through the financial, very practical support you are offering, because nothing would be possible without these three: your prayer, your encouragement, and your support in a practical way. You are part of the awe I feel. I'm in awe that there still are people today who are willing to support monastics. Do you realize how crazy, how mad, how against everything of this world that is? May God bless you for this holy madness of yours, dear ones, and may we grow even older together, much, much older. I love you all in Christ. May we all be blessed. Amen. Amen. Amen.